Welcome back. It's the home stretch. And of course, your calls and your tweets can still come in on the subject of peptic ulcer. Now, all these types of ulcers, can they be cured? Can they be totally cured?
Ulcers can be managed effectively with medications. And if the cause is really from H. pylori, like we've highlighted, is the commonest in our environment, then it is curable with eradication of H. pylori. But we should be mindful of the things that will cause the H. pylori in the first place. If you go back doing the same thing, then you can have a reinfection.
Not washing your vegetables
not washing hands properly, not washing vegetables properly, fruits properly before consumption. So yes, they can be properly managed.
Okay, so let's go to the surgery. Why would somebody need a surgery?
Surgery would be required in certain cases if there's been failure of medication use. So you've tried medication for prolonged period, so you can actually have a certain surgery, they call it vagotomy, which is like
that means something is being removed.
Exactly. So cutting off the innervation to that particular area. You can have that. There are also indications from complications. So supposing the commonest complication of peptic ulcer is bleeding, and the bleeding could be from the upper, so the person may start vomiting blood, or it could be passing blood in stool. If there's torrential bleeding and there's perforation, then you have to go for surgery.
But you spoke about cutting off innervation. Doesn't that mean that it's only the feeling that will be handled? The person won't feel any pain anymore. But can't that get worse?
No, it won't get worse. There's a way to do the surgery, and it will be targeted at the innervation of the pain and the sensation to that area alone.
Okay, I think you've handled this. Lazarus is asking whether there's any food that can trigger the symptoms of peptic ulcer.
Usually we ask them to avoid excessive fatty meals. We ask that they eat frequent meals.
Is this prevention or?
It's not prevention, it's managing. So you already have an ulcer, you want to see what, to avoid food triggers. So if you eat large meal at like distant intervals, that can trigger the discomfort. So we usually advise small quantity meals at frequent intervals. Then certain food that may necessarily sit back and take long for it to digest to increase acid secretion. So you usually advise low-fat meals. Then there are people that have identified certain food types. Some you've mentioned spicy meals yourself. So we just tell them, identify the triggers for you and try avoid it as much as possible.
Okay. Is there any way one can actually prevent peptic ulcer from even taking root in the first place?
Well, preventing it, if the most common cause, like I've highlighted, is H. pylori, so preventing it will be finding ways to prevent H. pylori infection. Proper washing of fruits and vegetables, increasing personal hygiene, proper hand wash. I think that's the first step. Then you have to be careful with the medication you use. Some people just go out and buy pain reliefs, and you know the chemist will sell. So you go and you said you're having back pain, so they give you 2 ibuprofen, 2 cataflam, 2 aspirin, 2 you take all that.
I think this is very important because these are some of the drugs that people generally believe, oh, these are over-the-counter drugs.
And some would now take that with alcohol to add it up.
Oh, and so that makes it worse.
That makes it worse. Alcohol on its own would aggravate all the symptoms and will even trigger the pain and discomfort. So those are things, I mean, healthy lifestyle, avoiding obesity, which, you know, is like the root of almost everything now. So I guess if one follows that path, and hopefully there is no genetic predisposition, then one can prevent it effectively.
Okay, it's out there in the news that the late 20th century was when most of the numbers started coming down. Numbers of peptic ulcer patients started coming down. What did they discover?
I guess it was probably the advent of antibiotics, because I mean everybody you're ill and anything happens, you just go grab amoxicillin and this and that, because when you are eradicating the bug that we mentioned, which is the commonest cause, we use combination of 2 antibiotics and a proton pump inhibitor. We call it a triple regimen. So, I mean, I know we all abuse antibiotics in Nigeria, so it may not be unrelated to the fact that antibiotics are generally readily available and everybody is taking. But I think there is also another study saying that it's actually not reducing, and that's because of the hygienic condition, the lifestyle, the low economic situation is not so good now, and people just go out and grab all sorts of whatever they find around. So it's a mix. In Nigeria, H. pylori incidence is about 90%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
That's all we can take, but that is really big. So, hygiene there, and don't be irresponsible with your antibiotics. Thank you so much for staying with us today, and thank you for listening in. Thanks for all the calls. Let's do it again next week. I am Mary Alale Yusuf.